Hello, everyone, and welcome to Second Sunday Family Art Making, presented by the Cantor Art Center and the Anderson Collection at Stanford University. We are so excited to have you join us for today's art making activity, inspired by contemporary artist Jennifer Bartlett. Now that spring has sprung, we can begin to enjoy the outdoors and the nice weather. Today we will explore the art of landscape painting, and we will make a viewfinder that will help us see the world around us, like an artist. A landscape painting or drawing takes in the visible features of the outside world, such as land, sea, and sky. Our activity today will help you translate the landscape that you see into a landscape that you can draw. So we will be making a viewfinder. It is a tool that artists have used for hundreds of years to create beautiful artwork. Artists have discovered that it is easier to copy a landscape scene if it is broken up into smaller parts. This allows them to focus on the details and shapes in the landscape. To start, find somewhere either indoors or outside where you think you will find a view you want to draw. Hold your viewfinder at arm's length, keeping your elbow straight. Look around you and discover different views. Think about the way different views look to you when you look at them this way. Are some views more interesting than others? Why? Choose one view that you like best. Make a pencil sketch of your view. Now add color to your sketch by using crayons, colored pencils, or paint to build up the picture you want to create.
We're going to make a viewfinder here, and you can use a template from the activity sheet. And I'm going to cut out the viewfinder template by cutting on the solid lines. And you're going to have to cut in the middle there, which is a little tricky, but you can do it because I believe in you. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and the last side. And now we're going to trace the outside and the inside on a piece of cardboard. I used a cereal box for the cardboard because it's a little thinner and a little easier to use than packaging cardboard. Cutting on the inside for the cardboard was more difficult than the paper one, so I used a pencil to punch a hole in the middle first. And there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides on the inside. Now I'm going to glue my paper onto the cardboard. Oh, it's a little sticky, so be careful. And then I'm marking the back for where I'm going to tape the floss. Here we go. There's one length of floss. Tapey, tape, tape. And here's another length of floss. And 2 more to go. So we'll get a 3 by 3 square viewfinder. And then trim, trim, trim. And look at that. There you go.
Jennifer Bartlett is a contemporary artist who makes large-scale paintings on canvas and also on non-traditional surfaces. In this painting, At the Lake, Morning, Bartlett has painted on both canvas and square steel plates. The steel plates are 1-foot squares that are placed in a grid pattern on the left-hand side of the painting. On each of the steel plates, there is a smaller grid pattern that you can only see when you are very close to the painting. The red arrow shown here points to the smallest grid pattern. Let's look at this detail. She uses the grid as a way to carefully observe and then paint each segment of her artwork.
Hi, I am Erica Deeman. I am a visual artist, primarily working in the medium of photography, constructing portraits of members of my community and of the African diaspora. I currently live and work in San Francisco.
And I'm Kim Beil. We're going to be talking about Jennifer Bartlett's painting At the Lake Morning from 1979. It's in the Anderson collection at Stanford University. So tell me, Erica, what inspired you to choose this painting?
I think the construction of the painting was interesting to me, that there were these abstracted pieces that formed this greater image. And in many ways, I think it kind of reminds me somewhat of my own work, kind of taking these individual views and kind of constructing a wider narrative and wider thinking.
Do you think she worked from one panel to the next, or I guess as she calls them, plates? Does she work from one plate to the next as they're butted up against each other?
Yes, I think so. When I look in detail at the work, it does appear that the strokes follow through the plates that she's created, which is also very interesting to kind of think about, even just the smallest of breaks in the stroke and in the pressure. Also, as well, kind of thinking about the consistency of color that kind of flows throughout the work and how precise it feels.
What do you make of the perspective on that lake?
It is very, very interesting. I struggle to actually even see it as a lake. It almost feels like some sort of constellation.
Yeah, that
And
looks to me like the moon, like there are
yeah,
clouds passing over the moon.
exactly. And it kind of really contrasts with this large space of blue, which kind of places it in the daytime, that this landscape is a daytime landscape. However, the reflection on the lake appears to come from a different time. And that makes me think about her later works, where she was really interested in the same place but over a period of time. I think the title of it is kind of adds to that intrigue when you really think about what she is actually asking us to really look at and to focus on.
That we're looking at both a place and a time.
Yeah. And I think she's kind of very difficult to define. When I think about her work, it's quite hard to really pinpoint her and kind of place her in one particular space or box.
Yeah, I think that feels deliberate to me. Certainly, each one of these pieces would be an abstraction on its own, but when they come together, we start to see it as what the title tells us to look for.
Painted steel plates and the painted canvas are combined to make up one complete painting. Jennifer Bartlett likes to contrast the square geometric shapes of the grid with the organic abstract shapes created by the brushstrokes. Jennifer Bartlett also uses a grid in this painting. What do you see when you look at this painting? Just like At the Lake Morning, this particular artwork shows us how Jennifer Bartlett likes to paint water. We can see that Bartlett has drawn a grid on top of her painting. This is a watercolor sketch. If she decides to make this sketch into a large oil painting, then each square in the grid will be painted on one square steel plate. You can use this method with your viewfinder and transfer what you see onto your paper. Jennifer Bartlett is inspired by the world around her. She often paints lakes, trees, even houses that she sees in the landscape around her. When you make your viewfinder, you will use the grid to help you concentrate on the shapes you see in order to make a drawing or painting. Learn to use the grid to complete beautiful landscapes. What do you see when you look through your viewfinder? Do you see something that inspires you?
Jennifer Bartlett's artistic consciousness came of age amid the heated discourses of minimalism and conceptual art that dominated the art scene of New York in the mid-1960s. Often she employs idiosyncratic and predetermined systems to guide her creative and formal decision-making.
I just sort of broke down what I thought aspects of painting were to line, shape, size of things, image. The process of doing it has taken over, so I don't have to think about the other thing anymore. I think part of the fun in art is that you really can't figure things out completely. There isn't one answer, and that the conversations you get into, why they're interesting is because there are very different points of view, and that the viewer takes the, with more or less experience, interprets that I find interesting.
Do you see how Jennifer Bartlett likes to explore using the grid in different ways? She says, the grid is not an aesthetic thing, really. It's a method of organization. I like to organize things, anything. One of the best parts about making art is sharing it with others and seeing how your art inspires their ideas. It's now time to introduce you all to our Second Sunday educators. They are here to help us with this art-making activity. So feel free to write your questions and art-making thoughts that you would like to share into the Zoom chat section, and we will answer them at the end of this program. Now let's watch and listen while our educators show us how they did this activity.
Now we're going to make our art. I'm using a picture of San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm marking where I'm going to use my viewfinder, and now I'm marking my square on my sheet of paper, and it has to be a 3x3 square. It can be 3-inch squares or 2-inch squares. It can be as big or as small as you like, but it has to be the same proportion as your viewfinder. Now here I'm sketching out what I see in my viewfinder. The picture I took in San Francisco had a lot of sky in it and a lot of grass. So I'm using my viewfinder to look more closely at the bridge and the buildings in the distance. And I can see one of the towers of the bridge, and I'm drawing out the sky now using my blues. And then we're gonna hit the mountains in the distance with a purple color. But first, blue. Blue, 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 blue. And then the Golden Gate Bridge looks a little orange to me, so I'm using orange for the bridge. And the rooftops on the houses look orange. Oh, and there's the purple. Purple for the mountains, because it's in the distance. And if you ever look at distant mountains, they're always some sort of blue or purple. And it's cool to look at. What else am I doing? Green for the grass, green for the trees. Now I'm adding more of the detail. Oh, some yellow for the golden part of the Golden Gate Bridge. And there's the lines. Oh, more detail, a little more blue, a little more purple. Getting some reddy, rusty color for the bridge. Yeah. What else do we got? Color in the houses. Look at that. Now, I'm using pencil, but you can use any other medium you want or have. You can use pens. You can use paint. But remember, it has to be proportional to your viewfinder. Oh, look, I added some birds in there. Isn't that nice? Am I missing anything? Ah, yes. Gonna highlight the borders a little bit, add some details, and there you go.
This is how I made my viewfinder. First, I took 4 equal-sized pieces of recycled cardboard and glued them together, and then I decided to use my blue and green markers to draw flowers and shapes to decorate my frame. After this, I took string to make the grid of the viewfinder. I ended up making 6 rectangular shapes in my grid because I used 1 vertical string and 2 horizontal strings. And then I went to one of my favorite places with my viewfinder, a bike path where I go running, walking, and of course biking with my sister. Normally it looks like this, but when I used my viewfinder, I took notice of the details and the parts that made up my entire surroundings, and I was able to frame different possible combinations. After looking around a bit, I decided to focus on the hills and the blue sky, and I decided that's the picture that I wanted to paint when I got home. So, in my sketchbook, I drew a square frame, and then I divided it into 6 rectangular boxes, just like the dimensions of my viewfinder. It was really helpful to use a ruler to make sure the measurements were just right. Then I started drawing in the bottom right box using my pencil, and I made my way through all 6 boxes. I drew the fence and telephone poles that I saw, a few shrubs, the hills, a tree, and the few wispy clouds at the top. And then I took some watercolor pencils to color in my picture. Again, just going box by box and focusing on the particular area of the grid instead of thinking about the picture altogether. I used greens and browns and yellows and light blue for the sky. And then I took a paintbrush with water and ran it over the colored pencil to give it a watercolor effect. And I like that it really brought out some of the colors and softened it a bit. What makes the use of a viewfinder so special in my project is that it helped me frame my view of the world in new ways. I keep going back to look at Jennifer Bartlett's work for inspiration because she takes everyday settings in our environment, like a lake with trees around it, and frames it with a grid to give it structure and meaning. I hope you'll use your viewfinder to see the world and your art in new ways too.
Hello, my name's Alyssa, and I am a student guide with the Cantor and Anderson Collection, a rising senior at Stanford. And I was inspired by Jennifer Bartlett's painting At the Lake Morning to go ahead and use this super cool viewfinder as part of the Stepping into Spring activity with Second Sunday. And I'm going to be using it, or I did use it, to make this painting. And it was a really awesome experience. Really what you're doing when you're using the viewfinder is you're using it to focus on an image and really break up what you're looking at so that you're able to, instead of try to draw everything all at once, really take it one step at a time. So looking at your entire image and going square by square, seeing what shapes do I have there, what colors do I have in this one area. And I think it's a really valuable experience, and I really connect with this work, this painting by Jennifer Bartlett, because I think it's a really great reminder, a really healthy reminder right now, especially in the pandemic, at least for me, to just take things one step at a time, that progress is progress, even if it is just literally one block that you're painting. And eventually that one block is super essential to completing that entire work. And I think that's applicable to other parts of our life and things that we're working towards. So I hope that you enjoyed this activity and have fun with it. Happy Second Sunday.
Thank you so much for participating, and we hope you have a fun day. Until next time, we'll see you on the original Second Sunday.